Yeah. Okay. Welcome, Vijay.
I'm Professor Dr. K.S. Gupta,
Welcome,
having 50 years of my work experience,
Wow.
right from the aeronautical industry to teaching, to training, to development, and empowerment and leadership is my foray. Strategic management also along with that.
Right.
I work on the mind reprogramming. And with this, lot of changes happen sooner than the late, because everybody thinks very good. After running the program, they get a lot of energy, but that energy goes off very soon. So how to maintain? So associated program is personal energy management also. So, okay, thank you for giving me opportunity, Manojji, and thank you for mail by which I am connected.
Okay, very good.
Look forward to have a great learning from you all.
Thank you very much for your generosity here. Thank you. Somebody else, you can, yeah, Daniel. Okay. Daniel is shared in the chat. You're based in Singapore. Okay. Got you. Great. Welcome, Daniel. Okay, somebody else, you either share on the chat or you can introduce yourself. We'll be taking
Okay, I'll go.
that.
Namaskar, everyone. I am Monujesh. About 36 years of experience in various industries. I'm working now for the last 10 years on my own in consulting with SMEs. Because after a full career of working with multinationals, I felt SMEs is the area where it is underserved, and I wanted to work with that. So most of my work is in change management, helping organizations to move to the next stage of growth.
Right, very good.
And most of my customers also are long-term, between 6 to 3 years already. Just about one new client every year. I can't take more than that because I'm a lone ranger working on my own.
Okay, got that. Welcome. Okay, somebody who's using the Dell, if you can change it or tell us your name, we will change it for you.
I'm Ashok Kumar Jain.
Ashok Kumar ji, yes, welcome.
I'm from, I'm retired Executive Director, BHEL.
Okay, very good, great.
Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited.
Yes, yes, welcome. Thanks for joining. Professor Bharatraj Singh, welcome. Komal Gandhi, welcome. Arindam, welcome. Harshud, welcome. Okay, and Dr. Sitamma, welcome. Okay, great. So let's begin. And so what we want to talk about is two things. One is the need for rethinking leadership. Okay, by the way, everybody, please put your videos on unless you have some real challenge with your network or something, it's okay. But it would be good if you put your videos on and we can interact with you instead of we staring in the blank screens and not knowing whom we are talking to, right? I know some of you already put it on. Thank you very much. And everybody else, it really beneficial for us. It looks like we can connect better when we know whom you're talking to, right? Gitanjali, welcome. Suraj, welcome. So what we're going to do is we want to look at two aspects here. So one is we want to create a case, even though for many of you it may not be required. We want to create a case that there is a need for re-looking at leadership and the way we approach leadership, what we think of leadership, and the whole paradigm in which the game of leadership is being played. So we want to create a conversation on that side. And then the second aspect is we want to look at what is the new kind of leadership that is required and how can we develop that new kind of leadership. Okay, so that's where we want to look at, and we want to start going straight into the problem area, that in spite of all the great success that human beings have had, and the successes in technology, economy, and everywhere. If we look at in the last 100 years, we have had a lot of success, a lot of movement. At the same time, we have also created some problems, and we want to look at that and maybe use that to question the need for our leadership model or our economic thought model. So Vivek, can you help us with the 3 divide slide? So we're going to talk about the, if you look at all the problems in the world, right, there are many ways you can look at it, but we are using this Otto Scharmer's model, and in which we would like it to see it from 3 divides. This is the ecological divide, the social divide, and the spiritual divide. So what is the ecological divide? The ecological divide is, I think all of us now understand, is how human beings have got disconnected from nature. As you, not just individually, many of us may not be, but overall as humanity, we have got disconnected from nature. And that leads to certain consequences, many consequences. But one of the simple number that we can understand is 1.5. We as humanity are consuming 1.5 times the regenerative capacity of planet Earth. Now, of course, if you want to go deeper into the divide between us and nature, I'm sure we can see so many ways, right? From the way agriculture is happening, the way the food is getting prepared, the way the resources we are consuming, the 1,000 ways. But just right now to highlight, you can remember the number 1.5. We are consuming 1.5 times the regenerative capacity of planet Earth. So that's the ecological divide. Then we want to look at social divide. I think human beings have been very innovative and extraordinarily successful in creating disconnect between ourselves and other human beings. We have managed to disconnect with ourselves and others in many ways, right? Religion, caste, creed, geography, and you can keep looking at how we divide ourselves. So social divide is human being disconnected with other human beings. One of the ways you can see is that financially, 1% of the population owns much more than 50% of the population. It's the social divide. And it leads to many factors. One of the things you can see is there are countries who are right now opening up. After the pandemic, they got all the vaccination done or majority done, and they're opening up. And there are countries where vaccination hasn't yet started. Right? That's just one symbol of the social divide. But I am sure if you start looking into it, you will see so many ways we are disconnected with other human beings. And third, and maybe most critical, is the spiritual divide. The spiritual divide is we are disconnected with ourselves, the self disconnected with self, which is we are not in touch with our real self. Now, again, it has many facets in which it shows up. But if you look at one number is more people commit suicide than are killed by all natural calamities and war put together. Right? So, of course, it shows up in all our stress and anxiety and all the psychosomatic diseases and all that. But in spite of all the violence, more number of people are killing themselves than are being killed. Okay. So these are the 3 divides, or the tip of the iceberg, pointing towards the need to rethink our civilization. Right? Yeah, Vivek, we can stop the screen sharing. Let's hear from some people. What do you get in this conversation? Any question, any comment? You'll have to unmute and speak up.
Go ahead, Monojesh.
Yeah, don't raise your hand, just unmute and speak up. All right. Okay, no comment from anybody? You're familiar with the three
No, not
divides?
yet. I'm fine.
Yeah, Manujesh?
No, I said no comment yet, but I agree so far. And connecting our spirituality with our practice is what I've been experimenting on as well. So please
Yes.
continue.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hello, yes. Why this ecological divide has happened? That is a question. Who is the responsible for this? Whether leaders are responsible? Who is responsible?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I would definitely say that multiple ways to look at it, right? And at one level, it's always a collective responsibility. And other level, it's also to do with the paradigm of economy and paradigm of leadership that we operate from. So if you look at what is the thought pattern here at the source of it, is what we call as ego thinking versus eco thinking. Ego thinking is where we are thinking for the benefit of some people, right? And not being mindful of everybody else, the impact on everybody else. While eco thinking is being mindful of everybody, right? Which, like in the Indian context, we used to use the word Vasudeva Kutumbakam. The whole world is my family, right? And now, if you look at right now, recently there was an article from McKinsey which talked about moving from shareholder economics to stakeholder economics. Right? So, of course, a lot of the damage and a lot of these social divides and ecological divides have something to do with the ego thinking, where we have been programmed to think for the benefit of self or some people at the without being mindful of the impact on others, on the society as a whole. We haven't been trained for that. And we have been trained to succeed, but in a very, very narrow paradigm. Right? And I do believe that it's got something to connected to the way we have been seeing leadership. And many a times when we talk about these three divides, most people think, oh yeah, it's a big planetary problem. It has got nothing to do with me and my organization. Right? We are different. We are different. We are different, or we are not connected with the big thing. But I am looking at, if everybody is going to take themselves out of the equation, then who's going to be left? Right? So let's look a little bit deeper into this conversation. Vivek, if you can take us to the next slides. Yeah, thank you very much. So if you look at right now, what's happening in the world, right? And you can see that there is a systemic failure. And I think the pandemic is an opportunity to see some of the problems that were always there, but they got accentuated now. It's not that those problems didn't exist, but I think they became more visible. They became more, you cannot hide from kind of situation. So one thing you notice is the systemic failure, whether it's the big government, big market, big tech, big data, all of these who were supposed to be the saviors of humanity many ways have failed humanity, right? And pandemic is just one, what do you call, access to see it, but it was already happening. And everything which is unsustainable is collapsing. So you'll see a lot of collapse of our lifestyle, a lot of like many of us, including myself, we used to travel in and out. Like half of us, or many of us used to live more in the airport than in the house. And there are a lot of lifestyles that we have had, they're unsustainable and it's collapsing. And a lot of ways organizations used to work, societies used to work, it's all getting kind of questioned. Now, there's also something else happening is that as systems are collapsing, people are rising. In India and many other places, there are also a lot of people individually and collectively coming up to support. So whether it's the medicine, whether it's the hospital, whether it's the food, in many forms, individuals, human beings are rising, maybe in groups also, and there's a new kind of power getting created there. And then there is a realization that we are all connected. That if you may be rich and you are vaccinated, but if your maid is not vaccinated, you can still get the COVID. Or Wuhan, which may be place that you never heard of before 2019, right? And you didn't even care whether it existed on the planet or not, can have some experiment and all of us can be suffering. So the realization that we are all one big interconnected system, ecosystem, right? So these are some of the things that are happening in the world right now. And they are going to alter the framework, the world view that we have to lead inside of. If we are ignorant of that, and if we are going to go back to the same old methods of leading, it's not going to work. There is a new reality getting created. And these are some of the factors that you may start looking at. By the way, if you want to study more about this, what I'm saying, this slide and the next slide, you can go to an article. You can search it on Google or Medium. It's called Awareness-Based Collective Action. If you search that, you will get an article by Dr. Otto Scharmer in which is captured this in details. It might be interesting reading for some of you. Okay, so Vivek, can you go next? Next slide.
Omkarji, this full name, Awareness-Based Collective
Action.
Action. Thanks.
So that's the, and it says the new superpower in the making. So it's not centralized leadership. And
I put the link in the chat.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
The link is in the chat.
Yeah. So Vivek has just put the link in the chat. You can copy it and then later on you can study the same if you wish. So in the past, we used to think of who's going to be the next superpower. Is America going to continue? Is China going to be there? Or is somebody else going to show up? There were hopes that India is going to show up as a superpower. But maybe there is a new way to look at it. Then maybe the superpower is not going to be some centralized leadership, but it's going to be a new power called awareness-based collective and awareness-based collective action. And you have seen this, all of us have seen this in our families also. When there is some big challenge or some tragedy or crisis, we get together. And it's not like some centrally coordinated action, but everybody kind of just does what is appropriate and together we deal with things. It also happened in our offices sometimes, right? And it's definitely seen in the world, right? Whether we know all of things, most of us know what things are happening in India, but also like some of our friends talk about Philippines. They have been doing this community pantry, started by one young lady, but then it is just kind of gone viral. where people put things that they can share, especially food and other items, and people pick up what they want. So it's like everybody can contribute and everybody can take. It's the whole collective action. And now, of course, it has kind of spread out all over the Philippines and a couple of other countries. And yeah, there will be many examples all over, you'll see. Right? Of course, in India, one of the things always comes up for me is the langar that the Sikh community immediately creates whenever such challenges are there, right? But many people have been stepping up and doing services, whether it's the food, whether it's the oxygen, whether it's the hospital, whether it's just collaboration. Like one of my friend, he had access to some medicine and he announced it on WhatsApp, and it's like 400 doses of this medicine. They were just taken away by people in half an hour or so. But he kept on receiving calls, and he kind of received 150 plus calls a day. And he said, okay, I couldn't provide medicine, but then I still provided support. I talked to them and saw what I could do, understood what the problem, coordinated with some government agencies, made something else available. So people have stepped in and made something happen. And that is the kind of power that human beings have, which we as want to kind of understand and explore. So Vivek, we can go to the next slide. Yeah. So what do we do in this phase of disruption? One is we can, of course, go back and say, okay, this pandemic is going to be over, so we will go back to our old style. That's one way to look at it. Or another thing is, when you face disruption, you can choose to wake up. And you can stop your current patterns, stop the old paradigms that are going on. Just stop, pause. Transformation begins in the pause. If you don't pause, if you don't stop, if you don't reflect, then there's no transformation happening. Then we are in the same old. But if you stop, then you have a choice. You have a choice to open mind or go back to the old. You have a choice to open your heart. You have a choice to open your will, which is let go of the past and let come of the future, if you wish to. So that's a choice. And there's also an opportunity to reimagine. And while we are talking here in this context, reimagine the world and our civilization, we are also saying, you, as a leader in organizations, you can reimagine the organization, you can reimagine the industry, you can reimagine the way your organization and industry interacts with the society. So there is an opportunity for stopping and choosing a new way to connect and to reimagine our society, to reimagine the game that we are playing. And if those of us, all of us here in this call, are leaders in some capacity, it is an opportunity for us to think on this new paradigm of leadership instead of whatever we would have been limited to. And as you reimagine, the game is to co-create a new ecosystem. So, so that's what is an opportunity for all of us. Again, you will find this captured in the article that we mentioned to you earlier. Okay, good. So let's see what you heard in this, anything you would like to reflect on, and any questions you have. Again, once again, I'm requesting everybody to put your videos on. It really helps us to interact with you. And go ahead. Any questions, any thoughts, any?
Manojji.
Yes, sir.
Manojji, I'm Ashok Kumar Jain.
Yes, sir.
I live in a society, and as you very rightly say, I endorse your point of view. Synergy is energy.
Right.
Collective working is synergy.
Right.
And where is synergy, there is energy.
Right.
I give you a very small example. In the society where I do live, there are
Yes.
1,000 families. And in
Right.
this period of COVID, we developed some 8 groups of volunteers
Mhm.
continuously working upon where the beds are available, what medicines are available, where oxygen is available,
Right.
and where the concentrators are available. And there is a community kitchen supplying the food to the people, free food, wherever
Right.
the food is needed. So
Brilliant.
instead of just letting down our head in thinking, people develop synergy.
Right.
And this synergy created a huge amount of energy, and we
Yes.
were able to fight with COVID. And today our society is COVID free.
Very good. Excellent. Thank you very much for sharing. Thank you. Brilliant. And that's the kind of power we want to take it in our daily life and in our daily life in the organizations and in the society at large, not wait for a pandemic, right? So we don't
Normally,
want.
normally, Manoj, when there is no pandemic, the same society, there's politics, there's arguments, there's fighting, there's people are fed up of each other. All that happens when there is no pandemic. But now that there is pandemic, now suddenly everybody is behaving in a completely different manner.
Right.
Fabulous,
Yes.
Ashok.
Thank you for sharing. Yes, somebody else?
Yeah.
Any questions, any insights?
No, Omkarji. I am Professor Bharat.
Yes.
Yeah, you have very rightly just mentioned about the ecosystem, organize, create.
Yeah,
That
recreate.
is the most important.
Visualize and recreate.
Recreate. Because you see, I hope entire system has collapsed because of
Yes.
this ecosystem we have destroyed. And the
Mm.
mainly who has destroyed these developed countries. If 34% of entire energy of the globe is taken by a small country having only 33 crores of the population and called superpower, do you think that the ecosystem will stand? No, I suppose it can't. So we have to rethink, reallocate, and the entire globe has to think how this ecosystem, because this pandemic and everything, what is happening, the cyclonic effect and all those things are just getting this virus and we are stand still, entire world is standing still only because of this we have destroyed. And the responsibilities we have to share. And that entire globe leaders must rethink, and try to reallocate how things can be. This ecosystem can be put in now in original position. It can't be in original position, but we can correct to some extent.
Yeah, I think going back to what was there before pandemic would be disastrous.
Yeah.
That would be like nature gave us a chance to learn and we refused to learn. Right.
Great.
Right. Daniel, great. Thank you very much for sharing, Daniel. And thanks, Professor. Okay, so so with this background, that there is a need for us to think of leadership, but not just leadership from, oh, the government should do something or the big companies should do something, but we want to tap at a very, at every level, and every human being can contribute. And every human being can, like if I look at the example of this community pantry, just example, and many of us have that in our own ways in here, is people can take what they need and people can provide what they can provide, right? There have been very inspiring stories out of it. But we want to look at how do we take it every day in our life, in our organization, day to day, right? Not just in such extraordinary circumstances like a pandemic. So that's what we want to talk about. And we want to introduce you this whole principle, theory U, created by Dr. Otto Scharmer from MIT. And Vivek, if you can go to the slide, no, go to the slide with the 3 boxes there. And yeah, so some of you may be familiar with Theory U. If you are, great. If you're not, don't worry. We're introducing this to you right now. And we do a lot of workshop leadership training based on this and consulting based on this. I will share some examples also with you on that. One way you can say that Theory U is the 3 things. It is a matrix or a framework, you can say, and it's also a method. It is also a movement. And so it's a matrix. It means what? It's a framework for leadership and management, but not leadership and management for the benefit of some people, not the leadership and management that the company grows at whatever cost, or not the leadership and management where the top management grows earns 10,000 times everybody else, and what happens to the world outside nobody knows. Not that kind of management, but a leadership and management which comes from the source, where people are connected to their highest future possibility and people are operating from a purpose. So this is a leadership and change management from being connected to the highest possibility and highest future possibility and the highest purpose. So we're going to talk more about this today's session, but it's a framework, right, for sourceful leadership. Second is it's a method for involving everybody. It's a method for multi-stakeholder innovation. Right? Not just some people in the head office doing certain things, but how do you actually involve people across the organization, people across in the periphery, people in the customers, the non-customers, the other stakeholders? How do you actually create a multi-stakeholder innovation? So that is the method that we're going to talk about. And it all begins with the spirit of a movement where there is an awareness of the disruption. Whichever industry we look at, the future is not going to look like the past. And if you as a leader, if you are a PhD in the past, you're going to be part of the problem that the company has to deal with. Right? If you know everything about what's to be done, what has been done, right? You are really a champion of the past, that's not going to work. Because the future is not going to look like the past. What is going to be required is developing a new competency for us as leaders, but also for everybody in the company, everybody in the organization. We'll need to develop a new competency. A new competency, what we call as a capacity to sense the future as it emerges. I'll repeat. The capacity to sense the future as it emerges. So we're going to talk about that. But you can say it's a matrix, it's a method, and it's a movement. Yeah, Vivek, we can go ahead. Thanks. So first thing is, you can say it has 2 sources of learning. Vivek, you can stop this screen share. Thanks. So most of us have been exposed to, and we are champions again of learning from the past, learning from reflecting on the past. And that's what we have all been trained in. But we need something new. We need a new way of learning. Learning by sensing and actualizing new future possibilities. Now, initially, our brain will say, how can I learn from the future? It has not happened. How do I learn from the future? No, you've got to learn from the future by sensing the future as it is emerging. So you need to develop a capacity to sense. I think Sadiq said, what can we give for the new leaders? I think it's for the new leaders and for all of us, even if you have been in this for 100 years. It's a capacity to sense, right? Not just know, but a deeper sensing, and the sense the future as it emerges. Right. So that is what we are talking about here. Okay, everybody, again, we are requesting. I know it might be irritating for some of us, but it would be really good if many of you can put your videos on. Right. Yes. Thank you very much, Sushil. It's an interactive conversation. Otherwise, it's like, yeah. Yeah, somebody had a question. How the future can be sensed, right? Who asked that question? Who asked that question? So,
Yeah, Manojji, I have asked this question.
oh, great. Dr. Pankaj. Right.
Namaskar, namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you very much.
Hi,
for-
Pankaj.
Okay, so
The issue is, my question here is that future is also sometimes a reflection of the past. And
Not
many
really.
times, yeah, kai baar hota hai. And you see that whatever is going on in your mind, what I say, abhav hai, prabhav hai, and accordingly you feel ye future hai. But future comes from a pure, what I can say, the pure bliss, those, the innate creativity, and sometimes in the domain of, like, that I don't know that I don't know.
right.
कैसे आप सेंस करोगे, क्योंकि ढेरों बार लगता है कि that it is what I am creating, but actually ये पुरानी चीज ही रिफ्लेक्ट होती है. That is what my humble view, Manoj ji. And
No, no, I agree. I get you. And I appreciate you engaging in this conversation, right? And we want to actually discover that how come we are so bankrupt in sensing the future. All of us as human beings, right? We are so bankrupt in sensing the future because we have got champion mastery in something else. And that mastery has taken away our strength to sense. And consider, I'm jumping ahead of my conversation flow, but I think it's okay. Consider that all of us have become champions of what we call as downloading. So you can capture the word if you want, downloading. Downloading means what? Downloading means interacting with the world from our habits of the past. So listening from the past, listening from our world of opinions and judgments. Sensing, we can't do because we are not there. See, the problem with sensing is it requires you to be there, but you're not there. You are in the past. We are all listening from our past with the habits of opinions and judgment. Whether it is about ourselves, whether it is about others, whether it is about business, whether it's about society or money or education or politics or the future of the world. Why we are not able to sense is because we are all just downloading. Doctor, you hear me? Dr. Pankaj?
मनोज जी, मैं थोड़ा तो समझ पा रहा हूँ, लेकिन बहुत चीज नहीं समझ में उसमें आ रही है. Because
हम डाउनलोडिंग कर रहे हैं.
डाउनलोडिंग
यानी हम अपनी पास्ट से सुन रहे हैं.
नहीं मनोज जी, जैसे अभी आप देखें, इफ यू लुक एट द करंट सिचुएशन ऑफ कोविड, एनीबडी इज गेस कि भाई क्या होगा, कैसे होगा. I believe that only way you can live is living totally and mindfully in now. Or what is in your area of concern, उस पे ध्यान देने की जरूरत है. What I can do in my humble capacity, or without bothering की sense future में क्या होगा जी, होता ना की फर्क पैंदा.
So wait for a second, because you actually answer your own question in a very different way. So let me highlight your own answer. Okay, you use the word mindfulness, right? Did you?
Yeah.
So when you're mindful, and it's like you're in the present moment, right? And I'm not talking about a future like what's going to happen 10 years down the line, right? But I'm talking about when you're mindful, when you're in the present moment, and when you are aware of your downloading, aware of your past-based thinking, right? When you're aware of it, you are able to suspend it. And when you are able to suspend that, in that moment, you can sense the future.
Got it. Beautiful. Very nice.
And it's the future which is emerging in that moment.
Very nice. Got my answer now.
Yeah. And
So
when
what
we
you're
can-
saying, the downloading which is happening
So,
regularly. if
can you say
sus-
that again?
suspend that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I will say that again. Yeah, Dr. Pankaj, go ahead.
So I'm saying very beautifully you have mentioned that. Now I get my answer. Because
Yeah.
what you're saying that there's some little voice already in the head and which
Yeah.
is, conflicting in, sensing what is really happening right now, right here. And if you just suspend that, then
Yeah.
you will be able to sense the future. So I agree.
Right.
with you. Thank
And
you.
you will, and you have to sense it moment by moment,
Hmm.
right?
Okay.
And
So I don't
the-
want to take more of your time. You please
Yeah.
carry on with the presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, no. The presentation is just a start to trigger the interaction. We have no commitment to the presentation. We are committed to the interaction.
If I've been allowed, sir. Sorry to
Yeah, just
interrupt.
1 second, Sushil. Just
This-
1 second. Sushil, just 1 second. Hold on. Yeah, just 1 second. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Pankaj, I just want to close that conversation with that many of us have been trained to apply this individually. But we have, most of us, not been trained to apply this kind of thinking collectively. Okay, so we'll talk about that. Sushil, okay, yeah, Sushil, go ahead. And Manojesh, I will come back to you.
Just to add on, this, this.
Sushil, your voice is cracking. Can you come, like, speak into the?
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, go ahead. Now it is better.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just telling that to add on the point you just mentioned.
Right.
So mindfulness you were talking about.
Yes.
So I just want to utter these words that we have to make a proper connect between the conscious mind and subconscious mind also, because the subconscious mind is helping you to download that downloading thing you mentioned. Okay,
Yes.
that subconscious mind is helping in that, because whatever thinking process is stored there, that
Right.
is pressurizing or pressing your conscious mind.
Right.
So you
Yeah.
have to make that connectivity well
Yeah.
to download the present towards the past according. So that is the small point I want to mention, that connect should be there with the conscious and subconscious mind.
Yeah. Okay. I would like to suggest another word instead of connect. I would like to suggest the word of awareness. That consider the
Yeah.
downloading is already happening,
Uh,
and it is happening all the time,
yeah.
right? And it is limiting the way we see the world. It is limiting the way we see people. It is limiting the way we see ourselves. I think if you try this word, then if we are aware of our downloading,
Yeah.
right, then you have a choice whether to
Have
be
a choice.
slave of the downloading or whether to have some question.
Master of it.
Master, I don't know, but at least aware.
The slave, if we talk about the slave, then we are
I
going
know.
with master accordingly.
But many times it doesn't work that way, right?
It doesn't.
I don't think we are going to be master of downloading. I don't want to sell you that possibility. But I want to enroll you into the possibility that yes, we can be aware of our downloading, and by moment to moment, we can have freedom.
Yeah.
But it's always momentary. In the next moment, you again have to be aware.
Yeah. Momentary. Yeah. Every moment is.
And in the moment that you are aware of your downloading, in that moment, you can develop the ability to sense the future that wants to emerge,
Sure.
right? So it's a new capacity to develop after you master being aware of your downloading. Okay, Sushil, thank you very much.
Thank you so
Doctor-
much. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Manojesh, did you get the point? Because I, in a way, repeated the point as I was explaining to Sushil.
I was just wanting that statement you had made, so I liked it very much. So the concept I've understood.
Okay.
Statement you had made at that time was interesting. So I just wanted to hear them again.
Give me one hint. What statement are you
That is
referring
part of
to?
the topic of capacity to sense the future as it emerges. Right? Okay,
Okay.
never mind. Carry on. We'll come back to it.
Yeah,
I know
sometimes.
it's difficult to recall what you said.
Yes. Right.
Just one more
Okay.
thing, Manoj.
Yeah, sure.
This is for everyone. most of us think that we are not much downloading. It's all the other people in our life, like our wives, our husbands, our parents, our children, our bosses. Everybody else is downloading. We really don't realize that a lot of our knowledge, what we know as our knowledge, sometimes is our downloading. It is like, I'm going to give an analogy of cricket. It's like you are a batsman, you've gone to bat. There is a fast bowler, say 150 miles per hour, the ball is coming at you, and you are not looking at the ball that is coming at you. You are in the past downloading, thinking that I will be able to take this ball the way I did it in the past. No knowledge will be able to get you to play that ball. Your awareness for what is emerging right now from the future is required. And we are not like that in real life, because we don't have any training in that. We have no practice in that. So that's Pankaj, and
especially when it
collective
comes to
problem.
management and leadership,
Yeah.
we haven't been trained to be present like that. Right? We've actually been more proud of our downloading. Like, oh, I know everything. And I know if this is the problem, this is the answer. We are champions of solving problems without realizing that our solutions are actually becoming the next problem. Right?
I mean, for myself, I'll say 20 years, I led different transformation programs, telling the whole world, thousands and thousands of people, that they don't listen. And after 20 years and after learning this new technology, I still found out how much I don't listen and how much my knowledge is actually in the way of my listening to people and listening to what is emerging from people. And every day something new is emerging and I'm just not listening and nobody is listening. It's a collective non-listening. The whole team isn't listening. Yeah.
Vivek, you're Vivek Chopra, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Pankaj.
Hi, Vivek. So nice to see you. After maybe 2
Good to
decades.
see you too.
And it's
Yes.
so nice. Thank you. You made a big difference in my life, you and Landmark. So I'm very grateful actually.
Right.
Thank you. And thank you, Manoj.
Welcome. I used to lead the Landmark Forum at one time.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. So Vivek, can you go to the next slide?
Yeah.
Manojji,
Yes.
I was thinking where to enter into such a strong discussion is going on and powerful to transform ourselves. Now, you made one statement that we are only creating a solution and creating new problem. Yeah.
Yes.
Always a solution will bring a problem along with that. It cannot come alone as a one side of a coin.
Yeah.
What about your view beyond that in my statement?
Say, let me give you more context to what I was saying. Is when you look at things from silo, right? And then whatever solutions you come up with are very likely to become a problem for the whole. And all the time we see we have been trained to think inside of silos. Like all over the world, if you look at the whole game is silos. When we look at education, it is a separate silo. Food is a separate silo. Healthcare is a separate silo. Of course, in our department is like every 2 people is a different silo. Right? Companies is like it's a silos only. It's a miracle that anything really gets done by companies, given the kind of departmental silos that we have created. But even otherwise in the world, if you look at, every disease is a silo, every social challenge is a silo. Like every issue, global issue becomes an industry in itself. Water will become a different industry. COVID will become a different industry. Some agriculture will become a different industry. We are looking at everything in silos. But the truth is, it's all one system, right? Human beings and businesses and society and all of these issues, they're all interconnected. So like going back to how the systems thinking concept, which MIT bases a lot of its work on. So unless you can see the whole system, right, whatever solutions you're going to come up with as inside of a silo, right, it's going to become a problem, most likely, right? So that's the context in which I was talking about. That thinking inside of the silo, thinking inside of the ego. Another way to look at silo is ego, which is limited. It's a boundary in which we think. What is ego? In this context, ego is a boundary in which we think. So whenever we think inside of a boundary, we don't know what is going to be the impact on a bigger level.
How bigger is the big? Issue is that because how far we can extend, how far we can wait and continue to find out, or to sort out the problem at local or at within the boundary available. These are the few issues emerges.
Yeah, one question you can ask is how big is the big, right? But the other question would be, are we even starting to get aware in that area? Like,
Yeah, that's the starting point. I fully agree.
so it's an awareness game, right? I don't think there's an
Yeah.
end to it. It's a game
Yeah,
of
I agree.
awareness.
I
right?
agree. Start
And
has to be
the more
aware.
you become aware, the more you discover other things to become aware of, right? So the spirit is, of course, the way I like to call it is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The whole world is a family, right? Like, and you can look at every industry. We have been operating from ego, which is we operate from the benefit for the benefit of some people without being mindful of the impact on the others. And now, as more and more awareness is coming, there is a pressure for the industries to be sensitive, but it's still like some groups are going to say, some stakeholders are getting a say, but not everybody. Right? Like we're designing education, how much say, how much influence are the children having in the education that we are designing? How much influence are the teachers having in the education that we are designing? Right? How much influence the patients are having in the healthcare policy? And how much influence the pharma companies are having? Is there a difference? So that's, I think it's more like as we start this inquiry called, how is ego thinking affecting every decision that we take?
No, that point is very, very well taken. But other side of it, if you look for everybody's impact on the system designing, system will never be designed, number one, because there's no end to continue, number one. Number two, yes, there is a flexibility in implementing. Let us say for teacher doesn't have much in the designing the education system, but teacher have implemented the system. And while implementing, they have the flexibility.
Why can we not include?
No, 1 minute. No, let me just complete my statement.
Yeah, sure.
That teacher will have to take care, including the children impact while implementing the system. So that is what the differences are there in designing, implementing, and acting. Doing the activity and result. Thank you. I'm putting it my thinking across you to understand more.
Hold on, Dr. KS, hold on. Hold on. That is the whole world of knowledge and downloading. We as parents do this with our children, and our children don't listen to us anymore. You all have experiences of that in society these days. More and more they're saying, just because you think you know doesn't mean. I have a person I'm coaching, his son says, I don't want to do anything. Finally, the father, he asked me, what should I do? I said, back off. Back off. Stop trying to push your ego and your thinking on other people. Stop. How old is your son? He said 18 years old. I said, what are you going to tell him? He can vote now. So he backed off. And the more he's backed off, the more his son has started to show up. His son has started to shine. We don't listen to people. It is possible, absolutely possible. In Germany, the healthcare system, in a place like Berlin, what they did was they started to interact and get in connection with the patient, patients' families, doctors, physicians, and also the workers, nurses, and all the other workers. They all collaborated and they all listened to each other. And what happened is they've had an 80% saving in cost and 150,000% increase in quality of healthcare in that little area called Berlin city.
Yeah,
so it is possible. It is possible.
Perfectly,
it's just that we have to be very
Vivekji.
clear. We have to be very clear. What is it that we are committed to? Are we committed to our downloading? That is our belief that nothing
No,
else
that
can
part
be.
I fully agree. I fully agree. As you said that parents are not listening. Yes, I coach the parent. I say reprogramming of parents' mind to empower teens. And in that, I do only that. That did you listen? Did you listen? And because I listen, so I'm happy. But they are not listening, so they are unhappy. So, but local area we can. That's what my point was. You are perfectly repeating the same concept, putting in the Berlin alone, or similarly implementing in one university, one
That's how you
place, then
scale it
waiting
up.
for whole.
That's how you scale it up.
Yeah, that's correct. Thank you. Yeah, same. I understood as well as I'm happy that concept is enlarging.
Great.
Yeah, and we have this block, I believe, that we can't involve people.
No, my issue was not that.
No, I'm
My
saying
issue was that how long and to continue to involve
but how,
instead of
forget how
proceeding
long.
to solve the problem. Thank
Forget
you.
how-
Anyway, I think disturbing. Please go ahead.
No, you're not disturbing. You are addressing the point. Don't what you're addressing is very valid, and we want to address that only. That we don't see the opportunity of designing the system by involving the stakeholders and co-designing the system. So the whole concept of leadership is the central coordination, the central leadership. Like some people at the center of the game will collaborate, coordinate, and do everything. Maybe that's the whole old model. Maybe leadership itself is the wrong word. Maybe you can replace and start to think from, instead of leadership, something called collective action.
Dealership.
No, collective action.
Anyway, new word. Thank you. Got it. Yeah.
Maybe
Manoj, can I say
everybody can
something?
provide leadership, and but it's depending on the awareness, right? So
Manoj,
yeah, go ahead.
Manoj, again, nice to see Dr. Gupta also, K.S. Gupta. I think it is a lot of my good friends are here whom I lost touch for a long time. And I was building some meeting and suddenly it appeared that I have to attend this. And I just joined just like that.
Very
And
good.
I feel so happy that I'm here. What Vivek was sharing about, trying to teach your children what to do, what not to do. It's better, to keep off. I learned that in a very hard way while dealing with my own son. तो एक बार उसने बिल्कुल विद्रोह कर दिया कि आपको मुझे बताने की जरूरत क्या है और मतलब बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग कन्वर्सेशन हुआ and then I totally left him and he's doing very well. So कई बार खाली ईगो का रहता है यार मैं जानता हूँ मैं इतना बड़ा एकेडमिक लीडर हूँ फलाना ढिमका मैं बताऊं कुछ जरूरत नहीं है लाइफ में और मैं इसके पहले I was also president of India's largest health university. That was the IHMR University, which is part of the Johns Hopkins. मतलब काफी इस बीच में बड़े बड़े एक्सपेरिमेंट हो गए बीच में हिमालय भी चला गया. I became a monk also, then came back. So when we were handling that in the health university, there were issues of like managing COVID in the state of Rajasthan, and which we did quite well. But again, the involving everyone is very important. Listening to their voices. एक तो होता है कि आपने सबको मौका दे दिया, हाँ भाई तुम भी बोल लो, लेकिन मन में बैठा हुआ है कि जो हमें करना वो हमें को करना है. तो खाली नेम से के लिए के जो इनसिक्योर लीडर होते हैं ना, they will do like that कि नाटक सा करेंगे जैसे अपने खैर चलिए नाम किसी का नहीं लेना चाहिए तो नहीं ले रहा हूँ. कई लोग हैं माई वे और हाईवे वाले ही होते हैं. दिखावा करते हैं, लेकिन एक होता है लीडर एम्पैथेटिक लिसनर जो वाकई में सुनेगा और उसको लेके चलना चाहता है. बट व्हाट स्टीव जॉब डेमोन्स्ट्रेटेड, कई बार कस्टमर को पता ही नहीं उसके लिए बेस्ट क्या है, क्योंकि वो भी अपने पास से चला रहा है, उसको भी नहीं पता व्हाट कैन बी द बेस्ट. उसके लिए लॉट ऑफ सेंसिटिविटी इज नीडेड एंड टू बी इन द हाउ यू कैन मेक थिंग्स बेटर. जो फिलिप्स का पहले आता था, लेट्स मेक थिंग्स बेटर. So if you have built that structure, and as you were rightly saying, Manoj, it is not about leading, it is about creating that spark in people and believing कि हर एक के अंदर एक बहुत बड़ी चीज बैठी हुई है, and how we have to collaborate and co-create that. So I just thought to add these few thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah. Great. Thank you very much.
Manoj, Shankar here.
Yes, Shankar, please.
What I'm interested to know is, as we are entering into this VUCA world, how is leadership going to be in the future?
Yeah, which is
nobody knows what we are going to do in the VUCA world. So, what are your thoughts on that?
So, which is what we are addressing here, and I think it's a right question. So first thing is that as leaders, we have to start noticing and be humble enough to acknowledge that we don't freaking listen. Like we don't freaking listen. And we may think we are the world champion of listening. And we have to acknowledge that we are champions of downloading. Right? We know how to act listening. We know how to get the right things from people's mouth and then do whatever we want to do with it. That is not listening. And secondly, we as leaders have to acknowledge that we are bankrupt in sensing the future as it emerges. And we are bankrupt in sensing the future because we are goddamn married to our view of the past. And we are more than that, we are goddamn married to our view. And unless we can sense that and we can be humble enough to acknowledge that, we are going to be one of the million examples of highly successful people and highly successful companies who got disrupted. Right? Every company thinks we are different. Every leader thinks we are different. But we are the next Nokia and the BlackBerry. Unless we realize we don't have any idea of what is listening, even though we may have, as Vivek said, we may have taught the whole world on listening. Unless we can get, we have no idea, no freaking idea. And we have no idea about what is sensing and what is sensing the future as it is emerging. We have no freaking idea about what is collective action and how to empower collective action. We are champions of instruction. We are champions of telling people what to do. We are champions of managing. Right? So Shankar,
Manojji, may I?
just 1 second.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Shankar, I hope it gives you a starting point.
So what I hear you say is we had to accept we don't know
Yeah.
where we are heading. Okay, leave our past baggage and start fresh.
Yes. And start listening and start sensing.
Yeah, and we entered the VUCA world 30 years ago.
And unless we can start putting the past baggage aside and start listening and sensing, we are the dinosaurs. We don't know it, but we are the dinosaurs. And the competition knows it, that we are the dinosaurs, and the future knows it. Because the future is like, I remember if you and some of you may have seen this video where the Nokia CEO, after the press conference where they had talked about the failure and they having to sell it off at a peanuts, he cried and he said, "We didn't do anything wrong." And I have complete sympathy for him. But we are going to be the same. We will not do anything wrong, but we won't do what is needed, which is to goddamn listen and sense. Because we know. And we want people to listen and sense. And maybe the intelligence that is going to save us is not going to come from our head office. Maybe it's not going to come from our leaders in the organization. Maybe it's going to come from the periphery. Maybe it's going to come from the meeting points of different industries. It's going to come from the customers and the vendors and some other places. We'll have to really get out of our ivory tower to listen and sense. So we're going to actually introduce you, that gives you a good opportunity. We'll just introduce you these 4 levels of listening. Okay. But Vivek, just 1 second. I think somebody had a question or comment. Did anybody want to say anything? Dr. KS or anybody else? before we
Yeah,
move? Yeah.
Manoj ji, I was telling that is what I have been talking till now, empowering leadership. Maybe I must have conducted more than 300 workshops in this
Right.
area. And
Yeah.
that is what is coming in a new way. That's what I'm only supplementing my approach. But that is what is empowering leadership, because every point or everyone has something great to understand, sense, and move ahead.
Yeah.
Therefore,
very good.
instead of keep on instructing, let them flourish themselves and help them to come out. That's what I wanted to supplement. Thank you.
Sure, sure. Thank you. So Vivek, can we, yeah. Okay. Go back to, go forward. Go forward. Yes. Go to the next one. Thank you. Okay, so so this is a very what do you call full file, like there's a lot of data point here, and I'll take you through this, but this can be a very useful conversation. So what we are talking about is levels of listening, and as you can see on the left, the first level of listening, where we have our house, we stay here, right? This is the place where we live. It's called downloading, listening from habit. Right? It's like we are in this closed room and there are windows all across, and the windows are closed and the curtains are pulled down, and we're in the center of this, we're in this closed room, and we have this projector in the center of the room, and it's projecting like a 360-degree projector. It's projecting everything. And what is it projecting? It's projecting our thoughts, our opinions, our perspectives, and our data from the past. So we are not saying that whatever you are projecting is wrong or invalid. What we are saying is that has got nothing to do with what's happening out in the world outside of your room. So when you are just watching your projections unknowingly, you are just reconfirming your old opinions and judgments. So how do you know that you are downloading? Is when you go through a meeting, go through a conversation, and you come out as the same person with no new thought process, no new inquiry, no new questions, no new perspectives, right? Then you are in the, consider that we are in the downloading phase. Now, if you want to develop yourself as a leader, right? So the next level to develop ourselves is what we call as factual listening. Factual listening is something that scientists have to definitely practice, because their whole world depends on they being able to see things in a new way, right? Which is what we also call as open mind. Open mind begins with being willing to question what is there in our mind. If you're not willing to question what is already there in your mind, you cannot have open mind. Right? So in the analogy of the room, it's like you switch off the projector where you have been seeing your own projections, and you go to the window, you pull the curtain, and you open the window and see outside. What's really happening outside of my head? And you will notice disconfirming data which doesn't match your current data point or your logic or your interpretation. And as I was giving an example of scientists, that's where their life is, when they can notice disconfirming data, contradictory data. So the factual listening is when we have the space and the commitment to discover something beyond what we already know, something contradictory to what we already know, something which makes us question our current logic. So again, if you're not questioning, if you're not really out to find out what is different from what we already know, If we can't find out, even if we try and we can't find out what's different from what we already know, then consider we are not practicing factual listening. Like recently, we were in a workshop where we were participating and we were talking about our projects and the peers, like peer coaching. And somebody gave us an insight, like feedback, which was like mind-boggling. It was so obvious and so at the same time it was like it just didn't show up in our radar till the time that person opened their mouth and said that word. And unless we can notice, are willing to notice that and see, oh my God, it alters everything that I've been looking at. Unless we have that commitment to notice, we're not practicing open mind. Now, once you develop some muscle in open mind, right, factual listening, then the next level is what we call as empathic listening. Empathic listening is open heart. What does it mean? If you go to the analogy of the room, it means you open all the windows, you open, of course, remove the curtains, and you actually get out of the room and you go out where people are, where your family is, where your customers are, where your workers are, where other stakeholders are. You go out there and like in a flash, you turn back and look at yourself. So it's like you're in two places. You're in the room and you're going out and standing with people and you're turning back and seeing yourself from their eyes, seeing the system that you represent from their eyes. So if you're a customer, if you are a supplier to a customer, the customer doesn't see you. They see you part of a company, part of the system. And same everywhere. The employees don't see you. They see you as part of the company, part of a system. So when you go out and see from their eyes, then you will develop a deep empathic connection, which will not get displaced very easily. Right? So that's the opportunity developers search. Then the level 4 is the advanced level, where generally we don't ask people to develop themselves in level 4 till the time they have developed some muscle in level 2, level 3. But we call it open will, generative listening. What it means is you let go of the past. You let go of how things have been. You let go of the answers. And you be open to the new future as it comes. You connect with an emerging future possibility. You sense that, but you'll evolve yourself in that as you practice more and more of open mind and open heart. Okay. Vivek, you can stop the sharing. Let's take some questions and inputs. What are you getting? What are you learning in this? What questions you have? Most welcome. Anybody?
Okay, I'll go. So one of the things we don't realize, and thank you for that slide, it was really nice. And I feel I am mostly in the second stage. Sometimes when I push myself, I can go to 3.
Right.
4 is very, very rare. I don't think I've, maybe once or twice in my life. Right? So I'd like to put across a statement, combining what was said before also by others, that people participate in a world that they help to create. So this connects to what you had talked about earlier. Right. And then second thing is that our main challenge, mine also, mostly, is that we listen to respond rather than listening to understand.
Right.
Third point I like to give as an example, that after I left, as sort of know, I was in corporate for about 25 years, ending last with Ken Blanchard Companies, if you heard of it.
Yeah.
and before that I was in Dale Carnegie, and after that in Institution of Mechanical Engineers. So a lot of learning experience in that. Right? Once I left corporate and I started working, one of the first assignments I got was to design a campus to corporate for one of these large education companies.
Right.
So I created what I felt was the best you could ever have. Right? And it didn't click.
So what is the point?
The point here is that I did not consider the student in creating my program. I
Right.
considered my corporate experience.
Right.
So I am the master of what is needed by the corporate.
Right.
So it connects to what you've been showing us, right?
Yeah. Very good.
The second thing is that the second example is I was in another location with a very large education group, the typical, kindergarten to engineering kind of group.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they wanted me to do something intervention for the teachers. So I called a meeting of all the teachers, representative teachers from each kindergarten to medical and engineering. 86.4% of the innovative responses came from kindergarten teachers. When you had all these 40-year-old PhDs in the room who were in the higher education deans and all that, right? So sometimes we are a victim of caste, even in this. Caste in the sense of the fact that you are a kindergarten teacher, I am a doctor or an engineer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And third thing relates to what you're talking about, future. During the pandemic last year, in one of the engineering companies I consult, we created a lot of digital assets, digital service modules, digital sales modules, a lot of these things. We thought that is the way forward. But since July last year, when things started opening up, our customers simply refused to accept those things. They said, "Ab to theek ho gaya, ab aa jao. Oh, remote se baat nahi hoga. Ye video conference mujhe nahi chahiye. Aap aa jao na." So customer also put us back to what we went back to the way we did business earlier because of customer pressure. So these are the points I wanted to put across.
I got that. Good. Thank you very much. Thanks for sharing. Okay. Any questions, any comments from the 4 levels of listening? Daniel, Ashok, Shankar.
Fantastic, very good. I appreciate.
Thank you very much. And Pankaj, people like us will have to let go of what we already know. Otherwise, all what we already know about listening itself is becoming downloading.
Especially when you're a PhD. Pankaj, especially because you're a PhD.
अरे जी की फर्क पैंदा मैं तो एक्चुअली what I have learned in my life, that हर आदमी का होता है ना कि they all try to be, from nobody to somebody. उस रैट रेस में भागते भागते कहते हैं जिंदगी खत्म हो गई, लेकिन जो रियल रेस है, there is actually from somebody to nobody and still having a sense of fulfillment. और जो आप लोग कहते हैं ना right now, right here, तो वो बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट बात है. I was talking to Yaduvendra Mathur ji, who has been a member in Niti Aayog. तो काफी डिस्कशन हुआ. And finally, being, full with the self-love and accepting the way it is, तो कहते हैं ना रजा में राजी. लेकिन फिर ये होता है कि जो creating it from his space and creating that and that and drawing you over there, लेकिन होगा क्या, वो सब है तो माया. Even if you go for मेरे को एक यूनिकॉर्न बनानी है, डेकाकॉर्न बनानी है, मतलब करना क्या है, मतलब that is what I feel living happily now. ना फालतू पने की अभाव में पड़ो कि मेरे को 10,000 करोड़ बन जाए, सब ईगो के गेम है एक्चुअली. तो that is what it is my humble experience. मेरे पास बड़े बड़े high level offers आते हैं, I don't take them. क्योंकि for me, myself, my happiness and the kind of impact I can make by my action and by my स्वभाव and swadharma, that is what I pay attention. और बाकी बहुत बड़ी जिंदगी विवेक knows me कि टाइटल के पैसे के चक्कर में मैंने काफी कुछ नुकसान अपना किया है लाइफ में. And I feel very happy to reconnect with all of you. Thank you so much. मेरे मन में desire आ रही थी आप लोगों से मिलने की. Can you imagine? 2 दिन के मेडिटेशन में मैं बहुत gratefulness thought मेरे अंदर थे और मैं मनोज जी, मुझे ये भी नहीं पता था कि आप वो लैंडमार्क वाले ही मनोज जी हैं। और आई फील सो, मतलब ये कुछ कनेक्ट बॉस है जो आप कॉन्शियसनेस बेस्ड भी काम कर रहे हैं, इज रियली वेरी नाइस। थैंक यू सो मच।
And again, I would to repeat something, Dr. Pankaj, that I said to you earlier, right? Is many of us who have been into this transformation journeys, personal transformation, right? What we have realized now is it again became a silo of individual transformation, because the individual doesn't exist in vacuum,
Yeah.
right? You're living in a world, right, with people. So there is and if you want to cause something out in the world, it's very useful to start looking at collective action and how do we empower awareness-based collective action.
Sure.
Right? So because you can work on yourself and you can kind of become a monk and you can do everything, but ultimately whatever you get created you can create in the world is not going to be created alone, right? It's always going to be created with people. So I'll give you an example, everybody. Yesterday, we were doing a workshop for a company that we are consulting. They have been trained in this theory of principles for long. And we started a new workshop for them for supervisor and managers, all levels. And instead of training them on anything, what we just did is we spent half a day on doing a SWOT analysis. But not we doing it, they're doing it themselves. And what happened in that is every department had their own idea about what are the problems in the company and what are the problems in their own department, what are the challenges in their own department. And since they were looking at their departments and their challenges, they were always trying to hide their challenges. Because, oh, it looks bad to say, oh, these are our problems, right? So they will be protective about their areas. Now, when everybody kind of shared and looked at the whole SWOT together, so instead of having this one view from their own small windows, all of them is like came out of their building and saw the building, like turn the camera around and seeing the whole building. Then they could own up all the problems of the company. And instead of trying to fight alone and trying to hide from others that we are facing this problem, that became from department problem to, okay, this is our common problem. It's a company problem and we can all own up. And the whole sense of togetherness and like the MD actually said at the end of the session, is till now my experience was I am alone to see all the problems. Everybody was seeing some part and some versions of it. Now there's a real sense of this, all these 23 people, we are all together dealing with this issue together. And we were trying to do the same thing. What we are talking here is instead of teaching people what to do, we were just focusing on bringing in awareness and collective action. And after some time, people started talking about problems and accepting the problems, accepting the mistakes, accepting the challenges freely. Like somebody said, oh, I used to sign reports of these people without actually looking into it thoroughly. Oh, I made these decisions and they were backfired. It's like the ownership of the game shifted. Right? Otherwise, it would have been like, oh, we're telling everybody how to improve, what are the gaps and what they need to do. And it would have been more of the, so we didn't have any leadership yesterday. Like nobody was providing leadership. It was just awareness versus collective action. And we are experimenting with that in the companies. We are experimenting that with our workshops, and we are finding a new energy coming in. Okay, and that's why we want to share with everybody. Now, giving you a little logistics also before we continue is we do workshops for people to get introduced to this concept. It's called Leadership from the Emerging Future. And the workshop design is a 2-day workshop followed by 6 sessions of coaching. And we have two kind of workshops. One is open for everybody, and second is dedicated only for corporate participants. Normally, the tuition for this workshop is £500, which is approximately 50,000 rupees plus GST. In the current COVID situations, we have been subsidizing it. So the corporate workshop is at £350, that is 35,000 plus tax. And the individual open workshop, when everybody can participate, is at £250, which is 25,000 rupees plus tax. Okay, and the next batch, the open batch, is available on 5th and 6th of June. That is the next weekend, and then it will be followed by 6 sessions of seminar series. And the corporate batch is in July. Now, corporate batch is where only people from companies will be there, and that is in July. Vivek, you have the date handy with you? I think it's 1 second. Okay, here. July is 24th, 25th July. Okay, so it's a weekend, again followed by 6 session seminar series. So we would invite you to all to participate in that and develop this, begin to develop this new kind of culture. And it's not just developing yourself. It's, I think that's just the beginning. It's the way you will then take it out and make it available to the world. Now, the good part of this technology, one of the good parts of this technology by Otto Scharmer is they're actually practicing what they preach, which means making it available as eco. So this technology is available without any financial restriction. It's available in the open source model, right? So you can use this technology once you learn it. You can use it any way you want, right? You can use it as part of your work, part of your consulting, part of your company, right? And you don't need to pay anything. You just need to acknowledge whatever portion you're using. If it is coming from Otto Scharmer, you just need to acknowledge that you're using that portion, right? And you can mix it with whatever other work you are doing. Like some of you are lead trainers and consultants, you can include it in your work. Some of you want to bring it to your companies, you can do that. We have had people, like a large organization recently, they had a 5 people core team participate with us. And then they created their own internal programs and they used the technology and trained everybody else. So that's a smart way of doing it. And that is what is encouraged. So because there is no copyright issue, there is no like royalty issue. No, you just acknowledge whatever has been created by Otto Scharmer as his creation. Whatever you do, your own value addition, you acknowledge as that, right? And you can use it freely. It's under the commons license model, right? So that is another thing that for many of us who are wanting to not just work on our own transformation, but to make it available in the world, I find that as a useful thing. Okay. Any questions about the workshop, the design, anything? And it will be led by me, Vivek, and our senior colleague Ferdy D'Souza from UK. Yeah. Okay. Questions? Anybody? And Vivek, can you also put your phone numbers? So we're going to put our phone numbers in the chat. You can capture it. You can get in touch with us on WhatsApp. We will send you the whatever information you need and registration. By the way, when you registered on Eventbrite and if you've seen the Eventbrite messages, you might have also accessed some videos. So we have put 2 video links where people, alumni who have participated with us earlier, some of them have shared. So those links are also available to you in the Eventbrite messages that you have received. And if you want some more information, of course, it's available for us. So you can get, and yeah, I think you can also go to this YouTube channel called Leadership from the Emerging Future. Okay. So there you can see videos connected with this. You can also see some of the sharing from earlier participants and get attend the video. You can see the video recording of some of our earlier introductions also. And every introduction is unique. Every introduction is kind of created on some different topics or created differently based on the audience. So you'll find different value in each of the conversations. It won't be a repeat telecast ever. Okay, so any questions, any comments before we move on? Yeah, Vivek, can you find out the YouTube channel link?
Yeah, one second.
Yeah, so we'll post that, but otherwise, yeah, we'll post that link. Yeah. And okay, so let's go ahead, Vivek. Let's go back to the U process. Okay. No, go back to the 2 ways of learning, and then we'll take it from there. So I talked to you about two ways of learning. One is learning from reflecting from the past, and the second is sensing and actualizing the future possibilities, right? And yeah, Pankaj, we have been doing a lot of work with educationists and also a lot of healthcare, especially hospitals and a couple of people. So we should talk. Yeah, I think you should get in touch with us and we'll talk. So Vivek, can you get us that slide?
Sure, thank you.
One sec, yeah.
Okay, you let
The
me.
YouTube link I just put
Okay.
for one of the sessions, and now you want to see this slide.
Yeah.
Yeah, which slide you want to see?
The two ways of learning. You have to go back. Yes.
Sorry,
Okay.
sorry.
Now, yeah. Yes. Yes. So this is what we talked about, and now, yeah. So now keep the true cognition. Go to the next slide. Yes. Okay. So another way to look at this is we've either been, you can live in the world of downloading, which is thinking and acting based on the habits of the past, or you can get connected to a deep innovation process, which is the source of all profound innovation. And this process it's called, what we call it is a U process. And this was discovered, and in a way you can say it has been developed over the last 30 years. It's a very simple process. And we can go to the next slide. Yeah, the U process. Yes, I can see it now. Thanks. So you can say there are 3 phases of this U process. The first phase, and this is very critical when you are entering a future, and if you want to be one is you don't know anything about that future, or you want to make sure that you are not getting limited by the past, then this is very important. The first phase is observe, 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 which is deep listening practices and sensing practices. So that's the first phase, observe, observe, observe. The second phase is retreat and reflect. So when you've done enough observation, now where do you observe? As I said earlier, you don't observe sitting in the headquarters talking to the same old people. You got to observe going out with the customers, in the periphery of the industry, in the field, and going to places where you can learn maximum, right? And not from just information of the past, but actually what's happening. So when you do observe, observe, observe with deep listening and sensing practices, then the next phase is to retreat and reflect, like step back. Retreat means step back and reflect. And I remember Dr. Peter Sengi's statement. Peter Sengi is, many of you may know, he's the person who brought systems thinking to the corporate world. He's also the author of the book, The Fifth Discipline. He said something which it kind of stayed with me, is organization learning cannot happen because organizations are too busy. Organization learning can only happen when they create some space and time to reflect. Unless you have a time and space to reflect, no deep learning can ever happen. So after you observe, then the next phase is to retreat and reflect. And this is not just individually, but collectively. And when you retreat and reflect, you allow the inner knowing to emerge. You connect to the sources of inspiration. And then you will have some sparks, something. And when you have some insight, some sparks, then you don't kill them under the bureaucracy of management, right? You don't kill them under the bureaucracy of the leadership and decision making, but you act in an instant. What we call is you crystallize and you do rapid prototyping, like the way they say in design thinking, but here it's little bit, you're clubbing the design thinking, but with little bit of other dimension, which is the awareness based collective action again, and rapid prototyping. And then as you do the rapid prototyping, the whole context is fail fast, fail forward, right? It's not, see, the difference between a pilot and a prototype is pilot is to prove your concept. Prototype is for learning. So the whole spirit of prototyping, rapid prototyping, is fail fast, fail forward, maximum learning, minimum risk. And then as you learn and experiment, then at some time you scale up. But coming back, the three basic phases: observe, retreat and reflect, and act in an instant. Okay. Now this is the U process. And for you to do this U process powerfully, and for your organizations and the environment to do the U process powerfully, you also need to do some inner leadership work, which we will talk about in a minute. But before I go to the inner leadership work that we need to do, which is the most critical part, let me see if you have any question about the U process. Vivek, can you stop the sharing, please? Thank you. So any questions about the U process?
Manojji,
Yes, sir.
this is you have explained the U process. Why can't be a straight line process? Why you call it a U process?
You can call it anything, but the one dimension here is you have to connect to the real deeper you. See, there is a superficial self, the ego self, and then there is a deeper self, the real self. So individually and collectively, we need to go deeper, get connected to the real self. So that's the reason for the you. You have to go down, get connected to the deeper self.
To go down inside yourself.
Yes.
This is why you have taken,
Individually and collectively.
this is why you have taken the shape of you,
Yes.
not like arrow.
Not
is
like
clear-
arrow. Yeah.
Arrow is
Yeah. If a straight line doesn't represent going down and connecting to the deeper you.
Good. Thank you.
Welcome. Straight line would be the brain-based management. This is about intelligence, tapping the intelligence of the whole human being, which is the intelligence of the head, intelligence of the heart, and intelligence of the hand.
This is the IQ plus EQ.
Maybe
Plus some
more.
other Q also.
So we don't
Another way to answer this question is either you are going down the U and you are connecting to the highest possibility, or you're going ulta U, which is you are not connecting to possibility, you're just fighting, arguing, creating more social divide, ecological divide, and spiritual divide, which is absencing. The one which is going below is called presencing. So that's how this name U came, just because it happened to be in the shape, nothing else. It's not the name was given first and then the drawing was made. It just happened to be like, oh, it's a simple U. You see, this is how we are looking at all the things, and otherwise we are going this way. That's all.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Good.
Anybody else? Any question? Any? Indranil Ghosh, how are you? Okay, we're going to end in 15 minutes, so some of you may want to try with your video on. Yeah. Okay, so now let's look at what is the inner leadership work that we need to do to be able to do this U process. And again, please remember, it's not just individually, it's also collectively. So Vivek, can you take us to the next slide?
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, so what we have to confront is what we call as the blind spot of leadership. Mostly when we look at leadership and management, we are looking at the results people produce, and we are looking at the process that people follow to produce these results, right? Like a painter, you can see the painting, or you can see the painter in action doing the painting. But both of them, all the research and results and analysis of the results and the process and the analysis of the process, that doesn't get us connected to the source. So the source, if you look at the quote, this is by Bill O'Brien, late CEO of Hanover Insurance. He says, the success of the intervention depends on the interior state of the intervener. What does it mean? The success of what I do, my projects, my initiatives, doesn't depend on the process that I'm following, but it depends on the interior state of the intervener. This is in my project myself. In the same way, your projects, your initiatives, whatever you are up to, the success of all of them depend on your interior state, individually and collectively. So the source of the interior state is something that we don't work on enough. Many times we are not even aware, and if we are aware, we don't work on enough. And mostly, even if some people are doing it to a degree on their individual self, we rarely do it as a collective. So what is this interior state? Vivek, next slide. You can say the interior state has three facets: the quality of attention, quality of intention, and the quality of presence. So I'll repeat: quality of attention, quality of intention, and quality of presence. So if you look at attention, as we talked about downloading, so if we are all the time downloading, what is the level of attention we have? What is the quality of attention we have? Big question mark, right? Secondly, many of us have positive intentions, and we want to make a difference to society. We want to be contributing overall as individuals and organization. But we get distracted. We get distracted by the targets. We get distracted by the breakdowns. We get distracted by other people, competition, and we there are so many distractions. The world is full of distraction, and that is another challenge in managing our quality of attention. Right? So one challenge is your downloading. Second challenge is all the distractions. Next is quality of intention. We have referred to this earlier, but I'll repeat. So you can have an ego intention. Oh, I want to take my company ahead. I want to take my country ahead. I want to do something for my community. I want to do something for my family. So there is we call it as an ego intention, because you're putting a boundary, and then you're only thinking of the welfare of those people at the cost of, or not being mindful of the impact outside. Right? Or you could have a eco intention wherein you're mindful of everything. Now, when you're playing with an eco intention, when you're playing with an awareness of which is mindful of others, surprisingly, you will find out you will have much more power. You will have different quality of collaboration, different kind of people, different kind of companies, different kind of organizations will want to work with you. But when you're working with only the ego intention, I want my company to grow, my money to grow, my department to grow, my blah, 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 then you don't have much space for people to collaborate with you. Because when you're thinking from ego, then they will also get to think from ego. But the moment you start thinking from ego and the bigger perspective, and as it happens in many social initiatives, till the time they get dominated by ego, is you get a lot of collaboration, a lot of people, like the universe wanting to support you. So the aspect of leadership, the inner work is quality of attention, quality of intention, and quality of presence, which is again coming back to your ability to be in the present moment and sense the future as it emerges. So in the workshop, what we do is we actually train you in all these principles with a lot of tools and practices, right? So with regards to how do you really open your mind, open your will, there are tools and practices that you do. It's not just theory or somebody telling you, but when you actually use those tools with people in your life, right? And you do those practices with people in your offices and your environment, you have that breakthrough, right? And that's the starting point of this whole journey. So what we're going to do is we're going to pause here now and start to wind up the session. We've got 10 more minutes. And I would like to take any questions you have about whatever we discussed or about our courses. And if you would like to discuss with us about how to take it in any particular organization, or you have some other ideas where you want to collaborate and take this work ahead, you're most welcome. So any questions, any comments from anybody?
Manoj ji,
Yes,
great work.
Thank you very much, sir.
Vivek ji, बहुत अच्छा. I also do many trainings and all, many places, because I spend, after completion of this outer journey, I spent a lot of time in the Himalayas.
Right.
I also became Osho Sannyasi and many things I did. Even my name also got changed to Swami Dhyan Dikshant.
Oh.
But then I again returned back to my original name. But I now work for my own happiness, and also in the nearby environment, whatever I can do in my limited capacity is what I do.
Right.
And I do programs in India, Australia, France. So I'd like to work with you and Vivek,
Sure.
and see how we can do together. And especially I want to do transformation in two fields. One is education and second is healthcare.
Yeah,
And,
I think that's brilliant. Those are very critical fields. Yes.
Because education, I have spent a lot of time, and then with the healthcare, because of my connection with those universities. So I'll be contacting you. And
yes.
क्योंकि इसमें बहुत सारे जो leaders हैं ना, they are highly insecure. होता ना?
Yeah.
Know how की जगह know who वाले लोग बहुत बैठे हुए हैं. And not only
but,
anybody can be right.
Yeah.
उस तरह का बहुत problem है. So we'll discuss with you. Thank you.
Yeah, but one of our colleagues recently said that most people have both ego intention and eco intention, but the whole structure and the environment is such that their eco intentions get suppressed and ego intentions get amplified.
Ji.
Yeah, so it's like a blind spot, so we can support people. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Somebody else?
Manoj ji, I'm almost US based.
Hmm.
I'm a green card holder, stay in US for a long time.